Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Aubrey. How's everything in your world today?
Excellent. I was playing pickleball this morning and I thought about this episode that I
Ah.
had planned because I was playing with someone who was really not a very good sport. She was kind of a
Oh,
sore loser, and
really?
it's related to what we're talking about today. Are you a good sport, Lindsay? If you're losing, do you get upset?
Yeah, I am. I mean, unless it's like sometimes like if it's my sport, like tennis, maybe that would upset me. But if it's anything else, I don't really care
I
because
think that's
I
how
got
I think pickleball is her
her
sport,
sport.
and she's very good, but, like, not only is she upset with herself if she's losing, but she's upset with her partner,
Well,
she's
that's not
grumpy,
good.
she's not
No.
positive. I'm like, you gotta be a good loser.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
sometimes are sore loser, sore winner. This means they don't stay positive, right? They might get a
Yeah.
little upset, a little
No,
too
we
competitive.
Yeah, I guess it's okay to be upset with yourself, but if you start getting mad at your partner or throwing your racket, that's not good.
That's
That's
not
not good.
good, right? And even if you're
Yeah.
getting upset with yourself, if that's visible, it still
Yeah.
can create sort of a tension.
Oh, yeah.
It's still a little tricky to stay positive if you're
Mhm.
upset with yourself, so it's interesting.
Oh my gosh, guys, go ahead and hit the follow button right now on All Ears English. Aubrey, what is our motto? What do we believe about learning English here at All Ears English?
Connection, not perfection, right? Yes, so
Woohoo!
we are teaching you the grammar, the vocab, but above all, take those chances to have conversations. Don't stress about your English being perfect.
Yes.
Instead, right? Make that
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah, and it's not just a philosophy. It's not just our value. We show you how to do it in these
Right.
episodes. We show you what is the phrase that will bring about connection and what is the thing you might do that would lead to a sense of paralysis and perfection. So we show you in the moment what to do. So hit the follow button on All Ears English, and we're excited to have you guys on board as our listeners this year. Good
Yes,
stuff.
absolutely,
Yes.
right? Don't be a sore loser for
Yeah.
connection. But this is related to a question we got. Let's go ahead and read it, and we're
Yeah.
gonna dive into some really interesting vocabulary today.
All right. I'm excited. I love when we get questions. Here's a question. Hello, Lindsay, Michelle, Jessica, and Aubrey. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for bringing this amazing podcast to our lives. This is Mira from Boston. I've been listening to All Ears English for 2.5 years when I commute to work, and I've learned a lot from AEE and never thought learning English could be so much fun. I heard my colleagues always say, now you're talking, or now we're talking very often, but I'm wondering if you guys can elaborate on these phrases sometime. Thank you for your work. I appreciate it. Best, Mira.
I love this
Amazing.
email so much. Yes,
Oh,
thank
me
you
too.
for I love seeing when listeners have stuck with us for years and that I agree. I think this is a fun way to learn English. We try to keep it fun. We share a lot about ourselves. So, thank you, Mira. I love that you're enjoying
Yes.
the content we're providing.
Thank you. Yeah. And by the way, guys, if you have not sent us your question yet for 2024, what are you waiting for, right? Send your email to Aubrey at allearsenglish.com. Let us know what you think of the show. Or even better, you could write your question inside a review for the podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, a YouTube comment. These are all good places to write your question and your review.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And Mira's question is perfect where she's very specific, right? She's sharing specific phrases she's heard. She's not
Mhm.
sure how to use them. She's not sure she's understanding them correctly. To get
Yes.
specific like this, things you're hearing that you're struggling with a little bit,
Mhm.
this is a great way for us to plan an
Yes.
episode about something specific like this.
Yeah. In other words, what Aubrey's saying is don't say, how do I learn English in your question?
Exactly.
Because
That
we
doesn't
won't
help
answer
us much.
that. That's too broad.
Right? Or just I hear phrases a lot that I don't
No.
understand. How can I understand them more? No.
No, way
Let's
too
get
broad. Bring us
specific.
one phrase, one thing you hear,
Yes.
bring that to your question. That's a question we want to get from you. Okay.
Yes. And
Good.
this is
Yeah.
interesting. These are not totally interchangeable. We do use them in different scenarios. So we're going to dive into each and give you a pro tip about how you can always make sure you're using the correct one.
All right. I love it. So let's start with the first one. And what is the first one that we're going to go
Yeah.
through,
First one
Aubrey?
is now you're talking. This is
Yeah.
so fun. I love this.
It
It's
is
so
fun.
encouraging and positive. We say it's used to
Yeah.
say that someone has said or suggested something that you think is good or worth doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's
Yeah.
do a little mini role play.
All
I'll
right. Here
start
we
us
go.
out. I don't
Okay.
really feel like cooking tonight.
Well, let's go out to eat.
Now you're talking.
Nice.
Right? So we
And
use it as a response to someone to let them know, I really approve of what you just said.
exactly. And also that maybe you've improved in what you've said, right? Like before
Right.
you've said this and I didn't really like that, but now you've said this and now you're talking,
Yeah, maybe you
right?
said, "Oh, we need to use up the chicken in the fridge." And I'm like, "I don't really feel like cooking."
Boring.
So then he says, "Gotcha, now you're talking."
Yeah. Or at home, we have this favorite pizza place that we love to go on Fridays.
Mm,
It's deep dish Detroit style pizza,
yum.
and it's just like kind of indulgent, but we love it. So sometimes on Fridays we'll suggest it. What are we gonna cook? Or no, let's get blue pan. Now you're talking,
Now
right?
you're talking. Yes. And we use
Yes.
this another way to express approval of not just something someone has said, but of anything. Like imagine that someone brings a cake to a potluck and you see
Hmm.
it and maybe all that was there before were like veggies.
Oh my gosh,
So this
yes.
kind of would imply that you're not as excited. You weren't as excited about the options before. And then the cake comes, you're like, now you're
Right.
talking.
Right. Even though maybe you're not talking at all,
Right. No one
right?
has
That's the
said
important
anything.
thing.
You
Yes,
see
that's
the
really
cake,
important.
now you're
Right.
talking.
Or you're negotiating a price and they lower that price. Let's say you want to buy a used car from the owner, directly from the owner, and they say it's $20,000. And then you look away and then they say, well, how about 15? Now you're talking.
Now you're
Right.
talking. Yes, this is
Hmm.
very common. I was telling Lindsay before we started recording that I planned this episode a few days ago. And since then, going to pickleball, just chatting with neighbors, I feel like I've heard it said 10 times.
That's so
We
funny.
say it a lot. We say it a lot. I'm excited for you guys to now know exactly what it means and be able to use it as well.
Our listeners are going to sound so incredibly natural. So, guys,
Yes.
write these down. Yes. Okay, now let's go into the subtle difference, the subtly different one, which is what, Aubrey? How is this next
Yes.
one different?
So this one is now we're talking. Now we're talking. It
Hmm.
can sometimes be interchangeable
Yeah,
with now you're talking, right? On the examples that we just said, you could always have used now we're talking, right? I don't
you
feel like
could.
cooking tonight. Let's go out to eat. Now we're talking.
Or
Or all of those
15K
others.
instead
Someone
of
brings a cake.
20K.
Now we're
Yeah.
talking. Yeah.
Right. Or you've lowered the car price. Now we're talking. Okay. Okay.
Right.
Right.
But you can't always say that first one. Now you're talking, right? If
Mm.
you also are involved in something, it would be strange to say, now you're talking. I was telling Lindsay,
Uh,
this just happened where my husband was cooking something and he like added an egg to some fried rice. And then he
mhm.
says, now we're talking. But he's the only one in the room. I was kind of in the other room. So if he said,
Okay.
now you're talking, that would have been really strange. Like, is he talking to his food? I'm not in the
Right.
room, right? But
Something
he
would
can
be
say,
off. Yeah.
even though no one's talking, he says, now we're talking, just meaning like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm excited about these leftovers.
Yeah. So it's kind of like between him and the food, I guess, but he's not
Hmm.
talking directly to the food. It's like the scenario
Right.
that it's like the situation that he's in is
Exactly.
better now. Yeah.
Yes, right? So it's also said to indicate something has improved like this, right? He just
Right.
improved that fried rice by adding an egg.
Mhm.
Maybe it wasn't going
Mhm.
quite as well. Now it is. You would not use now you're talking, but you can
Totally.
say now we're talking.
Okay. So what would be some examples? Let's see if our listeners we can nail down some
Okay.
examples
I
here.
say this a lot while playing sports and I hear it a lot.
Oh.
Like if I've missed a serve or
Uh,
two and then I get a good one, I'm like now we're talking. Like something
yeah.
has improved.
Okay. In pickleball, are there two serves that you get in the beginning of the
On the
point, just like
very
tennis?
first serve, just one of you serves to make up for getting to go first, and then after that, you
Ah.
each get to
I
serve until
see.
there's a
Got it.
fault.
Yeah, so there's pressure, right? To
Little
get that, in
pressure.
tennis, that's real pressure to not double
Yeah,
fault, right? So we don't
exactly.
want that. Love that. And here's another example. At work, sales numbers have improved. Now we're talking. Oh, just for example,
Mhm.
here, the scenario is that our sales numbers have improved. Now we're talking, right?
Right, exactly. That would be the scenario. If something's improved at work, you could totally say this, "Now we're talking."
Yeah, and I could see like if a leader or a manager is presenting that to the team and the team is on a casual basis, that might be a response
Right.
from the team to the manager or to the presentation, right? Wouldn't you
Yes,
say that, Aubrey?
exactly, and it's very motivational and positive. Just be like, "Now we're talking." Like, I'm excited about this
Mhm.
improvement, right? There's a
Yeah.
similar phrase we wanna share, just a quick bonus here. I remember this being on Seinfeld a lot. I feel like
Mm.
one of their dads, either George's dad or Jerry's dad, somebody would say, "Now that's what I'm talking about." And, so you'll hear this sometimes too. It means the same thing as, "Now we're talking. Now that's what
Oh,
I'm talking talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Guys, go back and find our episode that Michelle and I did about Seinfeld. Oh,
Yes, that was a fun
so
one. A lot
funny.
of
So
phrases from
fun.
that you hear and you're like, "That's straight from Seinfeld," but we say it all the time now.
Yeah, even that's what I'm talking about. I feel like
Mhm.
people use that. I almost
Oh, yeah.
wonder if that is actually straight
Maybe it
from Seinfeld.
originated there, and now we just say it all the
It
time.
actually might have, because I feel like I started to hear it around the 90s. So
Mhm,
that makes
that's
sense.
funny.
That is so interesting. Okay.
Alright, we have one more similar idiom I wanna share. I'm
Okay.
curious if you use this, Lindsay. I do feel
Yeah.
like I hear it a lot to say, "Now we're cooking with gas," and it means, like, you're just making very good progress, doing something well, and it wasn't quite as good before, so it's the same as saying, "Now we're talking, now we're cooking
Yeah.
with gas."
Yeah, I mean, I have heard it and I understand it, but I don't use it myself. It's just not
Gotcha.
quite in my repertoire.
I'm
You
always
say you
curious
use
when
it?
you say that, when you're like, "This isn't in my repertoire." I'm always curious if it's because you,
What
like,
is?
don't like it or you just didn't grow up hearing it.
Um, I
Summable.
don't know. I guess it's more the third option is that I don't think about
Just don't
saying
think
it,
about saying
right?
it.
Like, I would
Mhm,
say, I mean, we could do other things we might say for this. I would say now we're talking. I
mhm.
might say, yeah, now we're on
You
I
might
have
have
to
to
think
think
about
about
that,
it a
Aubrey,
second.
or I
I'm
have to do
curious. I'm
a
trying to
follow-up
remember what you
episode.
say. I
What
don't
else I
say
would
this
say.
often
No.
either. Now we're cooking with
Right.
gas, but every now and then I do hear it some. Like,
It's
for
fun though.
example, a neighbor was trying to light a fire in like a fire pit the other day, and he got
Mhm.
it going finally, and he was like, "Now we're cooking with gas."
Yeah,
It's
and that's
that kinda
funny
thing where,
because
like, if there's a difficulty, something you're struggling with, you get it going, you're very excited, then you might hear
yes,
this idiom.
for sure, for sure. Now things are working, right? And it's
Exactly.
important just to note when I mentioned the thing about the sales numbers, usually it's when things weren't working well before, just to make sure
Right.
we reemphasize that for our listeners. Maybe Q2 last year wasn't so good, but now Q3, oh, now we're talking, right?
Yes,
These
good
numbers
point.
are up.
It's
Okay.
definitely showing improvement, right? It would be kind
Yeah.
of strange if sort of you're sticking with the status quo to say, "Now we're talking." No,
No,
you're
it wouldn't make
indicating
any
that
sense.
there's an
Yeah.
exciting improvement happening.
So this shows things are changing. Things are
Right,
getting better, right?
right.
Yes. Okay. Role play time, Aubrey. Shall we do it?
Yeah, you and I are playing ping pong at a house party for this role play. Do you play ping pong, Lizzie?
Yeah, I love ping pong. It's always fun. For
Yeah,
sure.
table
For
tennis.
sure.
Some people call
Oh
it
yeah.
table tennis. I
Ping
love
pong.
ping pong.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Me too. It's fun. All right. Now we're talking. We were down by 5, but now we're up by 2.
I finally started getting my serve in. Now we're cooking with gas.
Oh, after this game, let's go get ice cream.
Now you're talking. Or now you're talking. There's a lot of intonation that would work here, right? I feel like
Yes.
sometimes we say now you're talking and emphasize the now, and then
Right.
sometimes we'll emphasize talking like now you're
Now
no,
you're
let's see.
talking.
Now you're
Now you're
talking.
now you're
Now you're talking. Like, we
talking.
usually emphasize now, I feel like.
I think we have
Now
and
you're
it's
talking.
And I think it's because of what we just shared with our listeners is you're showing the difference. So
Mhm.
now is the key word, not so much
Exactly.
talking. Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
weren't
love that.
talking before, now you are, so now now
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
key.
Yeah, I
But it
love
would
that.
be weird, it would sound weird if I said, "Now you're talking." No, we
Yeah, now you're
emphasize the
yeah,
now.
yeah. And there are other phrases where you could emphasize either one depending on the
Mhm.
mood, and we could talk about those another day on All Ears English, but this one, now you're talking. Now
Right.
you're talking. And then the other piece, Aubrey, I wanna make sure we talk about here is talking. Why not talking? Or can we do both? Or what should we do?
Now you're talking. I guess you could do both. This is very much going to be sort of a regional dialect thing. What did you grow up
Mhm.
hearing often, though? For me, I almost always drop that G. It's like, now you're
Mhm.
talking. And that's just how I grew up speaking, what I hear more often in the West of the United States. But some
Yeah.
people, that might be their pet peeve when people don't say talking, they drop
Oh,
that last sound.
I don't
Who
know if
knows?
that person would be very interesting to be around.
Imagine you say, now you're talking, and they're, do you mean now you're talking?
No, not
Wow.
fun. Don't invite that person to a party.
I don't wanna play ping pong with you, sir. I'm gonna play with Lindsay again because she won't judge my
For
phonemes.
sure. Yeah. Now we're talking. I think when it comes to, and we should do another episode on this one too. When it comes to dropping that G on verbs like that, I think it depends also on who you're around, how comfortable you feel around them.
For sure, and how
Not
formally you're
to,
speaking, right? If I were
yeah.
giving a presentation, if I were in a job interview, I would be speaking more formally, more carefully. I probably would pronounce talking.
Yes.
So, yeah, it makes a
Or
difference.
like, or I'm thinking like of all the presidential debates that are going to be coming up. Oh, cringe, right? So
Cringe.
yes, they on the stage, they're unlikely to say talking. Now you're talking. Like, the economy's gotten better this year as inflation's gone down. Now we're talking. No,
They're going to
talking.
try
They're
to
gonna add the
elevate
G to that.
their
Probably.
speech and just enunciating more clearly, because often, depending on the situation, you want to make sure everyone understands everything you're saying. You want to sound professional and polished, so you enunciate more clearly.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. What's a takeaway for our listeners?
Yeah, these are just such friendly phrases for connection. They're very motivational, right? It's a fun native way to agree or show approval. So you definitely want to use them. And then our pro tip is, when in doubt, say, now we're talking. Now we're talking, because that will always be right. But
That can never be
sometimes
wrong.
now you're talking would be strange if I'm just cooking and I'm making my own
still
food.
thinking of the
Who's
bringing
you?
the egg and the rice out of the
exactly. So when in doubt, now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Okay. Good stuff. Guys, we've come up with lots of new episode ideas that are going to be out this spring and summer into next year. So hit follow. Come back for All Ears English 4 days a week. Good stuff. All right, Aubrey, I'll talk to you very soon.
Awesome. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.